Let's turn now to our political panel. They are Jen Kerns, GOP strategist, former spokesperson for the California Republican Party. She's in New York. And Brian Joyce, host of the Brian Joyce Show on talk radio on WGOW-FM. Brian joins us from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Jen, what's your take on Don McGahn leaving the White House?
Well, Larry, it's something I've expected for a while. There has been often some contention and some differing opinions here between Don McGahn and the president. I've been hearing about this since even last fall. So part of me wonders what took them so long. But I think this is the natural course of events here when you're dealing with someone like President Trump. He's someone who doesn't mind changing horses midstream. We've seen that with the onset of Rudy Giuliani coming on to his legal team. And I think Don McGahn was more of the old school Washington, D.C. Type of attorney that President Trump thought he needed in the beginning. But now I think President Trump is starting to see, as his poll numbers continue to rise, as he continues to explain this investigation to the American people, that he actually needs to win in the court of public opinion as well. And that's why you see him bringing on people like Rudy Giuliani and people like Don McGahn heading out the door.
Brian, GOP leaders are publicly expressing concern. He was seen as someone who could stop the president, say, from firing Robert Mueller. What do you make of this, Brian?
Well, I commend Jen for trying to put as positive a spin on this as possible. But the fact is, Larry, this is a chaotic White House. And if it's not this man leaving, it's just one person after another out the door being replaced by somebody else. It's a chaotic White House.
Jen,
there's no leadership in the White House.
Jen, you'd have to agree with that a little. Now we got the idea of firing Jeff Sessions. Jen, you have to believe it is a little bit of a mess.
Well, I do think it is chaotic, but I think that is how President Trump prefers it to be. Look, I've worked for a couple of mega millionaires and even a billionaire. This is how they run their boardrooms, believe it or not. They always pit staff against one another. They always want to bring the staff together and come up with the best ideas. I mean, I hate to say it, but it is almost like an episode of The Apprentice, and that is just how President Trump works.
But this is the country.
Well, but here's the important thing, Larry. The American people, this is what they wanted. They were okay with the status quo not remaining in Washington, D.C. They were okay with the boxes being blown up. They were okay with no business as usual. In fact, they preferred no business as usual. Otherwise, they would have elected Hillary Clinton.
But do you think they wanted this?
I do. And look, you look at his approval rating. He's got the highest inter-party approval rating since President George W. Bush is the only other president that was ahead of him. That was George W. Bush in the wake of the 9/11 attacks when the country came together. He also has beaten Barack Obama in the presidential approval rating at the 500-day mark, which is pretty impressive when you think about how popular Barack Obama was as this young, up-and-coming African-American first president. To have beaten Barack Obama at that is pretty good. And you look at this new Wall Street Journal NBC poll that's been out this week, he's at 46%. That's saying a lot for a guy who has pretty much the entire American media against him and the global press against him.
Brian?
It's pretty impressive.
If you don't mind, let me respond here. Again, I commend Jen for trying to put a positive spin on this. This president has historically bad favorability numbers, poll after poll after poll. There might be a couple of anomalies, I'll give him that. Poll after poll shows him in the high 30s, low 40s. That is historically bad. It's incredibly low given the fantastic economy he inherited from the Obama administration. And in this business that, this is a reality show and that's how he likes to run things. I would agree, it is a reality show, but that's not what America wants, and that's why he is a historically unfavorable president. This is not what America wants.
Jen, if the Democrats take majority in the House, do you think they're going to push for impeachment?
I think it is the first order of business on Nancy Pelosi's watch. I absolutely do. In fact, there was a list released the other day of 100 investigations that the Democrats plan to launch should they become elected. But here's the problem for Democrats. This issue of impeachment does not poll well on the campaign trail, and that's why you hear Democrats staying away from the issue, especially in those tough swing districts. So Democrats have to walk a fine line here for the elections between their true feelings, which is they do want to impeach President Trump, and actually not being able to talk about it back home. I think that leads to a very schizophrenic party. But going back to the American people here, I look at the will of the voters all the time. It's how I lived and died at the ballot box for many, many years. And you look at the recent Quinnipiac poll that shows if Congress passed a law prohibiting President Trump from firing Robert Mueller, which I don't think he'll do, but the American people would actually oppose such a law, especially independents to the tune of 2/3. So I think in terms of popularity, President Trump is doing A-OK.
Brian, do you think impeachment would in fact reverse hurt the Democrats?
I would agree with Jen that I think some Democrats will push for this immediately, but the bottom line is, Larry, Democrats do not have the political backbone that Republicans have. They have never been good at taking the mandate and running with the mandate. I think if they take back the House, there will be a push from some Democrats to impeach. But I think Jen's right. There's also going to be a lot of Democrats in there who are going to be they're going to be walking a fine line. This is going to be it will have to be a very delicate approach. And, one thing I have always admired about the Republican Party is when they win back that House, when they win back the Senate, they get to business. They have a political backbone. The Democrats, I think it starts with their leadership, with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, not the best leadership. They've had a lot of difficulty, I think, getting everybody under the tent and on the same page. So I think there will be a push from some, but I'm not really sure where it will go.
Jen, the president has attacked Google, calling it favoring the left. Do you really think, Jen, there's a media bias against conservatives?
Yes, Larry. In fact, I do. I've lived and worked in Silicon Valley. I've seen it with my own eyes. In fact, one of my clients is the attorney suing Google currently on behalf of one of Google's former engineers, James Damore. He's become sort of a rock star in the conservative movement. He's a young Google engineer who I think as it goes, he was just talking about President Trump in the break room at Google, happened to say that he liked the guy and found himself summarily out of a job along with a couple of other engineers who are joining the suit. And look, we saw the co-founder of Twitter come out just a few days ago and admit there is a left-leaning bias. And if you look at time and time again, the algorithms of these social media outfits, they consistently put more conservatives into Twitter jail. They consistently shadow ban conservative accounts, not liberal accounts. The process of shadow banning is doing a couple of things. It's removing thousands of followers from conservative leaders and then also throttling, meaning holding back some of their posts from being seen by all of their followers, which is a form of censorship.
Brian, how do you see it?
I think these accusations of left-wing bias with search engines are a bunch of baloney. But let me ask you something, Larry. Even if it were proven that there's a little bit of a bias when it comes to Facebook, Google, a little bit of a bias towards the left, what exactly is wrong with that? I work in talk radio. I don't know if you've noticed this, but talk radio is an example of a medium that not only has a right-wing bias, you cannot be a left-wing voice on talk radio. It's almost impossible. Let's look at Fox News. Fox News has become state-run propaganda for the Trump administration. So if Facebook is swerving a little bit to the left, if Google, if it can be proven, they're swerving a little bit to the left, I would throw right back at Republicans. And what's wrong with that? There are plenty of media outlets out there that are just as biased to the right.
I would agree with Brian to the main extent. I'm a free market gal. I'm a capitalist. I think any entity, look, if conservatives wanted their own platforms, they should go out and invent those. Here's the problem. It comes down to candidate time and candidate access. And you can ban all the people you want. You can silence all the people you want. But if you're doing it to conservative candidates, under what would normally be FCC laws and rights to equal time. That's where you run into the problem if you're giving political parties and political candidates unequal time.
I don't mean to interrupt. I've been in the business 61 years. The Republicans threw out the Equal Time Amendment. The Republicans threw out the Fairness Doctrine.
That's right.
What
right,
you
Larry.
just asked for, Fox News couldn't exist.
Right, but look, again, I'm a free market gal. I believe you can't complain about it. If you want to go create your own product as a conservative, they should do that. The right should have done that 10 years ago when Facebook first came out.
I agree with that.
But look, new times call for new measures, and it's interesting because a lot of us political reporters and contributors are finding ourselves having to become tech reporters in a way, because the way that people search for information now does matter, and it's different though, Larry, than the TV rules of the old days. Now you actually can't find a product. There's an article out about Google. You nearly can't find a product these days unless you go through the Google search engine. That, my friends, is a monopoly. That may need to be looked at by the FCC chairman, Ajit Pai, a guy who I know and I think is very fair. But we're in completely new territory. This goes far beyond the TV Equal Access Amendments.
Brian, in your opinion, why is there such continuing division in this country?
Why is there such continuing division?
Yeah.
I think it's clear, Larry. It's the Republican Party and it's Donald Trump. Larry, let's look at what just occurred over the past couple of days, where we have a war hero, John McCain, who passes away. Now, look, you don't have to agree with John McCain's politics. You don't have to think he was a good senator. I didn't think he was a great senator. A lot of us didn't agree with his politics. We have become so divided under this White House. We have a president of the United States who cannot even lower his own ego to honor a man who served 5 years in a prison camp in Vietnam. And we're wondering where the division is coming from. This is the first time in my 41 years as an American where I have seen leadership in the White House that will not honor a Purple Heart winner.
He actually, you know what? He actually
bizarre.
did, and let me share the facts with you.
After
he did
being
exactly
forced to.
No,
After
no, sir.
being forced to.
He did the exact same protocol. He followed the exact same protocol that every president since 1959.
No,
yes,
he
sir,
didn't.
he did. Do not challenge
No,
me
he
on this
didn't.
point.
That's a lie.
President Dwight D.
I will
Eisenhower
challenge you. You're lying. I will not allow you to lie.
Excuse me, I let you finish, you'll let me finish. In 1959, it was President Dwight D. Eisenhower who set the protocol for flag lowering above the White House and other properties. And it says this, it says that for a U.S. Senator, the President of the United States must lower the flag on the day of the U.S. Senator's death and the day following the U.S. Senator's death. That is precisely what President Trump did. This right here is the problem, Larry, that the Democrats, no matter what President Trump did, he followed the exact same protocol that every United States president followed since 1959.
Why did he change it then?
He did not change it.
Why did he lower the flag
Saturday,
again?
Then he changed it because of the
Larry,
public
here's
pressure.
a better question. Here's a better question, Larry.
The question is, did he
no,
follow
it is.
the protocol
Now, I've let you
established
finish.
since
Now
1959,
you can let me inject some common sense. You can let me inject some common sense.
We're almost
you
out
don't
of
have
time,
to offend
guys.
me.
If you don't mind. Larry, it was not just Democrats taking exception to this. If Donald Trump was following protocol, Jen, why did the American Legion write him a letter, post it on Facebook, demanding that he follow protocol?
All right, guys.
The right to do
we're
that.
a
having
left-wing
back.
organization.
I'm out of
He lowered it.
I'm out of time, guys. We're going to have you back soon. Jen, Brian, thanks for your time today.
Thanks,
Larry, thank you.